It'll be a great project. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
So what is the new date? Are you allowed to say?
How's everybody?
What do you think?
You found
It's more like a baby pool.
Well,
It's even born.
Is that crazy?
Actually, I know it's
like April of 25.
Okay.
So when you get the link,
March
copy.
26th.
It's really that far away. It's crazy. It seems like it's
Because it's
like,
those sort of things.
With the latest, with the latest
No,
training
it's-
stuff.
No, it's just when you get the Dropbox link, if you're gonna add one.
For everyone, so for the sake of the administrative law course. Welcome to our August 23rd BAR large meeting in the public room at 2 George Street. I'm John Robinson. I'm the chairman of the board. Other board members with us tonight are Jay White, James Metter, Seton Brown, and Steve Ramos sitting with us as an alternate. City staff present are Lawrence Courtney and Travis Gallagher. Applicants have been required to submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Staff will control the slide presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the appropriate deadlines. Applicants simply need to ask the staff to advance to the slide they desire to see during the presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name when speaking. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the City of Charleston Public Meeting Channel on YouTube. Your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. The order of the meeting will be as follows. There will first be an introduction overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the benefit of the public. This is followed by the applicant's presentation with a 10-minute time limit or extended if necessary by the chair. Again, any and all presenters should clearly state their name and affiliation with the project. This is then followed by the public comment period. Written public comments, I don't think there were any, had to be disseminated before the fact. Members of the public wishing to speak have a 2-minute time limit and should state their name and address. Approach the podium. The public comment period is followed by city staff comments and recommendations. The applicant is then afforded a 5-minute time limit to respond either to city staff comments and or the public comments. The applicant does not need to use this time if they do not feel it is necessary. This is in turn followed by board discussion and a vote. After the presentation at this point is over, public comments closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand or waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and then their vote on the motion. If I don't read the motion verbatim, I should be corrected. Each member of the board should state on a substantive motion whether they vote yea in favor or nay not in favor. Results are posted at charleston-sc.gov/BAR. As a first agenda note, item B1, the 143 Calhoun Street, Knights of Columbus application has been withdrawn by the applicant for the time being. Please turn off all cell phones and disruptive devices. With that, we need to move to agenda item A1, which is approval of our minutes from our previous meeting.
I'll make a motion for approval as submitted.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, the motion's in proper order. Mr. Ramos, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Yea in favor. Mr. Metters? Yea in favor. Mr. White? Yea. And myself, yea in favor, passes unanimously. So we'll now move into the substance of our meeting. Application B2.
Okay, item B2 is 176 Concord Street. It is new construction. It is in the 56/30B Height District, the old city district. The applicant is requesting final approval of exterior design refinements to include expanded glazing and provisions at the 6th-floor penthouse. This is a resubmittal for a deferred motion. And with that, we have a few contact slides and we will scroll through those rather quickly because everybody knows where this is. And then we will turn it over to Mr. Schutte.
Mr. Schutte, you have the floor.
Good evening, Nathan Schutte, on behalf of the entire design team. I'd like to thank this board for taking their time this afternoon to have this conversation. Tremendous agenda. Hopefully we can move through this relatively quickly. This is picking up a conversation that we had or started a few weeks ago with some other proposed design refinements. What we want to talk to tonight are specific to the 6th floor on what is the north end of the Waterfront Hotel. This conversation started with this goal or this desire to open up what is a penthouse unit. So in this particular case, east is up on the page, north is to your left, west is to your south. But our goal here was started to open this unit to that view. The best way to look at what we're proposing is in this comparison, wherein you see on the lower left our original design as approved and what we're aspiring to do. So you've got this penthouse portion, if you will, this terrace in the center portion. Originally, we just had a couple of pairs of doors on either side. As that became a single large unit, we sought to open as much of that wall as reasonably possible to view. We looked at other parts of the building and began developing that vocabulary really out of what we started with in the center of the view. So again, from there, we developed large window openings on either side. There's really two parts of this conversation that we carry from the last meeting. One was, how far, what is the resolution of this entablature that was over the terrace porch? How does it continue itself or resolve itself on the facade? And then second, we have removed the interior columns from this to open up that view as much as possible from the inside. That also improves, and this was a question we had in the previous presentation, that colonnade bifurcated that terrace space. So we're accomplishing two things with the elimination of those columns. We're opening up that view, but we're also creating a lot larger usable space up there. With that, we are preserving the outer two corner columns of that overhang to effectively hold those forms. As the design advanced, and going back to how do we resolve the overall vocabulary, the initial comment from the board was, how does this finish itself or complete itself on the building as a whole? So what we are proposing is carrying that large entablature, the high entablature, around and letting it die into the interior corner on the pool courtyard side. When we do that, we start to look at what happens on the north elevation or the motor court side. We're carrying that entablature around, but we're letting it die in the interior corner of the motor court. The original design intent for this was to allow that sixth floor to diminish. We were very concerned about the overall scale of the project, hence we created sort of a intermediate top to the building, 1 story below the sixth floor. As we've introduced this high cornice, we want to preserve part of that and allow this central space to not end up with this kind of stacked cornice condition, but allow it to diminish itself to the sky. But we didn't want to do that without thinking about the overall composition of form. So we are proposing that if we extend this high entablature to the inside of the motor court, we do the same thing on the building mass to the west. So we have added a cornice, a high entablature around that element. And that's what you see in the perspectives on the right, as well as here on the last page of the presentation, you'll see we're carrying that entablature from inside the motor court around this in mass in a similar way that we're doing on the left, or on the east side, or on the west. We're trying to balance that composition. One other design feature or element that we have added from the original proposition is where we are allowing those bunch openings and that more diminutive top of the building. We are adding a layer of detail, proposing to add a layer of detail, including shutters up there. We don't want those shutters to match the green below. We think they're more appropriate to be akin to the lighter color scheme that's at the top of the building. But again, we think that level of detail is appropriate with the amount of detail we're adding to the high cornice and the other details around the top. So that's a bit of a walkthrough of the design changes that we're talking about here today, all starting from this notion of how do we appropriately develop a concept that opens this design to the harbor, but finishes the design and the composition of the design in a way that's appropriate for the rest of the area. So with that, I'll conclude my commentary, and if there's any questions I can help clarify for the board, happy to do so.
Questions from the board at this time? See none? Oh,
I do have
Steve.
So, because I wasn't at the July 12th meeting.
Yeah.
What did you present at that meeting for this?
So the entablature stopped here on the face of the building. So instead of trying to wrap, we had simply, really more or less where the capital of the outside of these pilasters are, we had simply returned it to the building and let it be. So the entirety of what we were talking about changing happened.
But then was this area here basically the same as it is now?
Yes, and actually the interior glazing inside that terrace is the same here as it is here. We have changed nothing inside that space. The only thing we've done is remove the 4 columns in between the corners.
And they were removed at the previous meeting too?
Actually, at the previous meeting, we were proposing to not have any of the columns.
Okay.
That's what's different. That's a fair question.
All right, yeah.
And now the 2 that are left are the 2 outside.
The 2 outside ones hold in the corners of that space.
And the
Further
reason
question?
we took them out was to kind of have just a more
Yeah,
better view.
open up the view as well as make more usable space on that terrace.
So, I mean, I guess this was going to be my comment, but I will make it a question. For the most part, these changes are being driven by the view from the inside out rather than the view of what the building looks like. I mean, this is a single unit on the top floor and they want to maximize that view. So by taking these obstructions out, we're making that a more important, better space.
Yes.
The shutters that you have on the top floor, you wanted to keep them similar to the surrounding colors, but not matching the rest of the building. Is that the exact same color as the?
Actually, no, it's a trim color that's on the top. So actually, if you look at the
And I'm sorry,
unchanged here, you'll see that this little
I'm looking at page 8. Forgive me.
page, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually 2 colors up here. There's a body color, and then there was a lighter kind of accent color that little profile that still remains is. We want to match the shutter color to that accent color so it's consistent. It appears elsewhere on the building. But again, we think taking this green up there is not the right thing.
Yeah, got another one.
Certainly.
How many questions can we come up with? So the public right-of-way view, you're showing kind of aerial views. I guess the public right-of-way would be the new park.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've looked at
It's
KYC.
almost impossible to see if you're talking about the terrace that's up there. From land, it's almost impossible to see unless you're up, unless you walk up, Cumberland. Thank you. So if you're up Cumberland,
Pretty far to the north.
yeah, you could kind of see the end of it, or you gotta be on boat.
In a lot of ways, we're not saying it,
Further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none. City staff comments or recommendations?
Good. Mr. Chairman. First, staff context and analysis. Project was previously heard by the board in July with the board making very little comments on anything but the elimination of colonnade at the east 6th floor portico and an adjustment of the upper golf course on the building's main body. Staff conditions. First, the span of the portico is excessively long to be supported only at the ends by single columns. This visually unsettling condition is compounded by the addition of double pilasters just outside of the portico to the north and south, begging the question about the possible use of double columns at the portico itself. Secondly, staff finds the design of the original portico language much more successful and would ask the applicant to explore a fully covered balcony, which also would allow for the better functionality as well as preserving the portico's colonnade. Thirdly, the bottom of the belt course on the upper main body of the building at the north and south elevations is best aligned with the bottom of the adjacent fascia at the portico upper frieze wrapping these revised areas at the east and west. 4, staff recommends further study of this area and column spacing or the possible elimination of the portico entirely, simply resulting in an open balcony. Staff's recommendation is deferral for study of the 6th floor portico element, the associated provisions on the north, south, and west with an adjustment of building main body uppermost belt course with board comments and staff conditions.
Thank you, Lawrence. Nathan, you want to respond?
No, I appreciate staff's working with us and look forward to the conversation with the board.
Good. All right, board discussion. James.
So I agree with the staff's position, except for I'm challenged by having an open porch above those doors with no cover. So I think that I agree that it should be restudied, but
not eliminated.
But if this restudy were to have a plan that eliminated and they felt comfortable with the waterproofing around the doors, sure. So I don't have the same emphasis on that one as I do the rest of them.
Very good. Further board comments?
Well, you take a really large project and then you zoom in on one little thing. It's Parkinson's law of triviality. The amount of time you spend on an issue tends to be in inverse proportion to its significance. And on a project like this, and considering that this is a river-facing facade and it's really limited visibility, we've asked before, and the city of Needle has told us that the public right-of-way as it pertains to us does not include the Cooper River. I kind of think it should, but that's what they've said, so there you go. And although I think the design is far more comfortable with all 6 columns, it's not, I don't think it is going to be such a negative impact that it should really just sort of entangle this and repeating deferrals and reconsideration by the board. So I'm inclined to approve it as it's been submitted.
I would second you on the Cooper River observation about both, that we counsel that it is not within our purview, but that it probably should be because it's very darn important to use that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that either way at this point. Really am. And I think your observation on Parkinson's law is right. Further board comments?
I was gonna say, I agree with both of you all about it. I think the design could be improved, but if it's not visible from the public right of way, and it's 60 feet up in the air, I'm not sure it's worth messing with.
So, Mr. Chairman, let me get a clarification. Why is it here?
As Nathan said, and I think being in full frankness, it is possible to observe it from the public right of way in a very limited fashion. He commented on that. He could have pulled some sleight of hand and said you can't, but I think he did the right thing and said, oh, it's possible, but you'd have to look for it. So therefore, it's here.
And certainly
In
the
our
changes to the
jurisdiction.
cornice are very visible.
And so I, again, just want to say, if it is here, it's here for a reason, and not asking for that to be looked at again because of the narrower window. If you have concerns about it, if you don't have concerns about it, it's fine. But if you have concerns about it because of the narrow window, that's still our charge.
Further board comments?
I'll share that I think that the project looks much more finished than when it was originally proposed. The 6th floor glazing, I was never a fan of. The extended portion of the glazing on the penthouse suite looks nice. I agree with the comments about the portico looking incredibly heavy on just 2 columns. I think that the inclusion of 4 is not going to disrupt the view space from inside, and I can appreciate the muted elaboration of it. It's similar in use to what you would have with people's building. So I appreciate all of that, and the extension of the additional work along the 6th floor. I think it looks like a much more finished and well thought of product. So if there was an option to move forward with board and staff comment and let final approval go to the staff, I think that would satisfy
That would
me.
satisfy your concerns. And I share your observations that I think the architect has done a really good job of having a much more finished cap. In some ways, I think it's more subtle on the building. It feels less heavy to me, particularly with that nice entablature all the way around.
Yeah.
Where it looked very unfinished before. I would say that, yes, it's a significant feature, but if it would allay potentially staff's concern to look at a double column treatment on each end, even when it wraps around, then that might be a prudent way to resolve this, since Mr. Sheedy said that he was interested in learning from what it was that we had to say. And I understand having that uninterrupted span, but maybe to Mr. Brown's point, you do something that makes the lid look a little less heavy, is what I'm hearing.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so I want to tell Nathan that I'm grateful for his honor. He says this is driven by the view from the inside. I mean, it's just a fact, and we all know it. It may not even be what you would prefer to do, but that shouldn't be a consideration.
I absolutely agree.
And,
And
but I thank you.
And when you brought it up, I knew that's what you were driving.
Unless there's any other board comments, I was going to throw a motion out. How about final approval with board and staff comments regarding column number and spacing with final review by staff?
I'll second that.
Okay, very good. Mr. White made the motion. The motion is for final approval with comments related to the column numbering and spacing, final review by staff. That's correct. And Mr. Brown, you second that as made. Okay, it's in proper order. Mr. Ramos, how do you vote?
Yay in favor?
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Matters?
Nay, no.
Mr. White?
Yay in favor.
And myself, yay in favor. Thank you to the applicant.
Thank you.
We know you'll work diligently with Lawrence to get that.
We'll get there. We
Something of
appreciate it.
mutual accord.
And thank you for my own meeting.
Absolutely.
Something that few people will
Few
actually
people have ever
want
had, that's right.
or want.
You put your hat on. You only have to take it off for like 20 minutes.
That's
Good, right?
Yeah, good. See,